Hello and welcome to Season 5, Episode 17 of Logicast, the AWS News podcast brought to you by Logicata. I'm Carl Robinson, CEO and co-founder of Logicata, and I'm joined today back from the sick bed by Principal Cloud Engineer John Goodall. How are you doing today, John?
I'm okay. Painkillers help.
Yeah, you've got some good ones. I think you may put the brand name in your...
I don't know that's a brand name. I don't know that's a brand name.
Is that the drug name?
Yeah, in the same way that we call it paracetamol and ibuprofen, not like Advil and that kind of thing in the UK, because I don't care what the brand is. It's co-op ibuprofen, whatever. But no, it's a strong anti-inflammatory. It's good. It's very good.
Does remind me of a dad joke. Why are there no aspirin in the jungle? Because the parrots eat them all. Anyway, on that note, I think I should really introduce our guest for today, Gabriel Torres, back on the podcast for the second time. How are you doing today, Gabriel?
Everything is going well. Thank you for having me here again. It's a pleasure to be part of the great podcast.
Thank you. Tell us a bit about, for listeners who didn't see your previous episode, tell us a bit about what you do in the AWS community and what you do for a living.
Yeah, the last year was a pretty much years, because I've been working for a different service. I was speak in a different talk about the community and share content in general. And everything about AI has been changed a lot of things, and you are specialized in one thing, the first mode, and the second mode, everything changed. And in general, in the community, I was sharing content and try to teach people to understand a different service over the AWS.
And are you a community builder? I don't remember.
Yeah, I am a community builder at the serverless category, but this year I sent my in this case my applications. But I'm waiting for the confirmation. I hope that everything is going well.
Yeah, we're all in that same position. I was going to ask you if you'd put your renewal in, because I think the closing date was last Friday, maybe midnight, something like that. So as usual, I did mine relatively last minute, although I think I did it on Tuesday or Wednesday. So technically not last minute. I still had time available, but I figured, my application's probably on the top of the virtual pile. If that's how things work, I don't know. But...
Yeah, I think they probably do them in order of receipt, right? So whoever's done them first, I don't know. Maybe they do them alphabetical. I don't know.
I like to imagine it like a big pile of paper, and mine is on the top. So that's where they're going to start. I'm sure that's not how it works with computers, but I can still imagine it that way. We're all going to find out at the same time anyway.
And it comes out a printer in Corey's house.
Yeah, it could do. Dot matrix one. Big long line with it's all joined together, and it'll kind of concertinas.
I missed those printers; they were good fun.
Oh, we just digressed into old tech again, like last week with the PDAs. Old tech is fun. I was watching a KGB spy series this weekend called The Americans. I don't know if you've seen it, but it's very good. It was recommended to me by our co-leader of the AWS Brighton user group, Anita, and there was a fantastic dot matrix printer in that. The guy was just setting up ARPANET, and they were digitizing all the FBI evidence so it could be accessed on a computer, which those the glory days back then. Anyway, we're not here to talk about dot matrix printers and 80s and 90s tech. We're here to talk about the latest in cloud tech and the latest in AWS news. So as regular listeners to the podcast will know, once a week I curate a list of AWS news, which I share via my weekly AWS News Roundup newsletter. And then John picks a selection of the articles from the newsletter, shares them with our guest, Gabrielle, and then we will talk about them on the podcast. So the first of them is about a new application that has been launched by AWS pushing once again into the app space. Numerous failed forays into the application space in AWS's history. Is this going to be the one that changes their fortunes in the application space? We'll have to wait and see. This is an article on Amazon News all about the launch of Amazon Quick Desktop AI Assistant. So I downloaded it last week, had a little play. Looks pretty good. John, what are your thoughts on Amazon Quick Desktop?
Well, to start with, it sort of confused me on the naming because there's a whole bunch of other quick things that aren't this and not necessarily AI, right? There's Quick Sight, which my thoughts are public record on. I don't enjoy using it. It has its time, it has its place. It's good at what it does, but it's not the most enjoyable thing to set up in the first place. It's quite awkward, I find. And that has obviously had Q just spewed all over it. Fine, okay, whatever. Then there's Quick Suite, I think, which was Quick Sight plus some other things, or it was a rebrand, or I don't know. I got lost. And now this is just Quick. Okay, cool. I haven't downloaded it. It's on my list of things to do today, or well, it was, but it'll get done eventually because I want to have a play with it, much like you've done, right? It's one of those things that I think we spoke about this on the podcast last week, where we spoke about Quick because we were at a dinner and some Amazon folks were talking about it, and they were, it was the Italian versus the American. The Americans, I can do so much work, and the Italian was just dying because it's so American, and they were kind of waxing lyrical about it, and they rated it quite highly, and it's on the list of things that I think we as a business could probably make better use of because, okay, it's brand new, but we've been having these conversations internally for a little while about, can we build our own kind of internal chatbot? Is there something that we could do that gets data sources from here, there, and everywhere? And how would you think about security and that sort of thing? Because everything and its mum right now is offering an MCP, is offering its own flavor of AI, and then you've got a billion different privacy policies that you would have to read and make sure that you comply with because you've got, we have ISO certification to worry about. Lots of businesses do that as well. There's SOC 2, there's HIPAA potentially that you might have to take account of, and various other things. And if you're connecting a billion different AI tools, to your existing workloads, you've really got to think about that. Quick is probably quite good at that because it's just doing things with the existing tools, and because it's Amazon, it'll run in Bedrock. I haven't checked this, but it will, because that's just where Amazon runs everything, which kind of covers you for a lot of that, right? Because the way Bedrock runs models is it runs inside Amazon. It's not sending data back to Anthropic or Mistral or OpenAI or whoever, right? It's staying where it is, which covers for a lot of security concerns for a lot of people because your data isn't leaving Amazon, it's staying there. And Amazon is pretty well already on your list of approved vendors anyway. So you kind of, cool, right, tick, we don't have to do any more of that sort of thing. That's really cool. I like that a lot. And I like that it's AI that knows how you work. Right. Wonderful. It'll talk to your files, your calendar, your email, anything you're currently already using, Slack, Jira. This is brilliant because we use a lot of these tools, and it's really common for us to want to just ask one thing. Tell me about such and such a thing that I know is in my documentation somewhere, or it's in an email, or it's in Slack. I don't know where it is, but I know it's there somewhere. Tell me about it. And then the AI could come and do that for you. And the fact that I don't have to build it is brilliant. I don't have to build it. It's great. What I'm quite interested in, and I'm not sure how I'd go about using this, is the fact that Quick can also talk to Kiro CLI. And I use Kiro a lot, right? Today alone, because it's May, I think they've done a bonus for paid users where on May the 4th, everyone got another 500 tokens because it's Star Wars Day. I've used 290 of them today, and I came back to work today, right? So I use a lot of my credits in Kiro very quickly. But I tend to do that in the IDE interface more than in the CLI. And maybe I shouldn't do that, because genuinely how I work is I talk to it in chat, and then I will look at the code that it's writing in the IDE, but I'm not using the IDE like I would have done IntelliJ, right? I'm using it for just, it's the easiest way of looking at what it's doing rather than doing it kind of the old-fashioned way, as it were. So maybe I can use Quick with Kiro CLI and just slightly update my workflow, and then I just stay in the one thing. That would be quite cool. But yeah, I'm excited by this. I want to see what it's doing. I want to see pricing because I haven't seen that yet. And Kiro has pricing, right? You pay $20 for Pro and $40 for Pro plus taxes applicable to your region. And that gives you 1,000 credits or 2,000 credits, and the credits work out at that number to about 2 cents a credit. I couldn't tell you what a credit translates to in terms of tokens because they have their own mapping, right? But Kiro is not free, and I haven't seen pricing for Quick yet, but maybe it's because I haven't looked.
Yeah, it's because you haven't looked. It does exist. So there's a free version with a free trial, which is $0, and then they got the plus version, $20. a professional version, $20 per user per month. Plus a $250 infrastructure fee per organization. So I guess that's if you want to actually use it in your AWS account, because you mentioned the data does all stay inside AWS, but actually you can use this without an AWS account. So you can sign in with your builder ID, which is what I did. But then I was slightly hesitant about connecting it into all of my other apps because it didn't answer the question very well about where my data would go. Certainly wouldn't be in my AWS account because I haven't hooked it into my AWS account. But if you sign into an AWS account and you try to sign up for a professional, then it's going to guide you through setting it up within your AWS account. And then, of course, any data, your what do they call it? Your knowledge map, your knowledge graph, sorry, which is the kind of interconnection between all your different data sources that ends up getting stored in AWS. So my first impressions were it's pretty good, but then I haven't tried many of these. I'm a regular user of Copilot on the desktop because we use Microsoft 365 and that's just bundled and included. It, from a look and feel perspective, just, I love a user interface, and this feels like it's got a much nicer user interface. It generates markdown documents of things that it's creating, which are quite useful to then import into other things, etc. So it's quite nice. But what are your thoughts, Gabrielle? Have you tried it yet?
Yeah, I was doing a few things the last week, particularly in my organizations. I worked in a bank from Ecuador, and in this case, we started using testing this quite Amazon Quick, but for our intention is try to understand how it works very well. Particularly, we think that it's very nice because you can have everything in one place. You can different connectors. You have knowledges. From my perspective, like cyber reliability engineer, it's very nice because we can automate different kind of things of our daily basis. And we have connection with the calendar, with the Slack, with different things where you can automate in this case. And for other ways, one of the things that caught my attention is that the governance that you can have in my penalty service is really important. The data governance, the data privacy, and in this case, I think that it is very nice. We see this this service with a positive light, and I hope that it could be sustainable over the years. And I think that is a rebranding of the versions or previous versions that Amazon quit site, which is one of the things that particularly for me doesn't a good service. I think that in this rebranding, Amazon quit is more than AI assistants. Basically, is AI operations assistant is more robust in this case. And well, I see this service with a positive light.
Cool. Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty excited to try and use it more. I did quite like the fact that it would just allow me to connect in things like my email account, etc., without needing admin access. Other things that you mentioned, John, like Jira, etc., obviously you would need admin for that. I think you need to give it access keys, etc. But sort of user level stuff, files, emails, and so on and so forth. You get, those integrations are there. I guess you just click the button and put your username and password in. I haven't done that yet, as I say, because I'd rather do that within our own AWS organization rather than my builder ID. But obviously the data still all stays in AWS, but not within a partition of AWS that we have any particular control over. So probably not quite as good from a governance perspective. But yeah, I mean, pricing looks pretty reasonable. It's $20 per user per month for build annually, or $25 per user per month if you want to pay monthly.
Plus tax, plus Kiro, because I can't live with that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So that starting to make my AI bill is about $50, and I'm looking to need Kiro Pro Plus at this point because I use it that much. So it's like it starts to add up.
But I think it's quite interesting because I've used Kiro quite a bit as well. But actually, as a less technical user, I think Quick is probably more relevant to the types of things that I'm asking it to do. So Kiro's been able to do most of it. But as you said, you've just been in the chat interface. That's exactly what I'm doing. I don't really care that it's creating Python scripts that I can run again and that kind of thing. I just want to do a thing. And it doesn't really matter to me how that thing gets done. So I think Quick Desktop looks like it abstracts things a little bit more from the user from that perspective and just does your kind of desktop computing type tasks. I got it to write an SEO plan for our new website the other night, which was pretty comprehensive. I told it, what I was looking to achieve with the website, and it spat out a
more people to find it plan. I think.
Well, that, but exactly, yes. But once they found it, then what? But it was pretty good actually at the things that it picked up. I was quite impressed. And again, I guess you could do this with most AIs. Some people are using Claude on the desktop. I haven't tried that myself. I've tried ChatGPT in a web interface. I've tried Perplexity in a web interface. In terms of an installed app, I've only tried Copilot. But this just seems to have a much broader look and feel.
Well, we had this conversation last week, didn't we, about, as you said, broader look and feel and sort of all the rest of it, about what's basic versus advanced usage. And I think this is starting to cross into advanced, right? Because you're giving it so much more to work with. Even if what you're doing as a user is basic, you're only asking it kind of basic questions. You're not going to a web interface to go and say, well, here's a thing that I need to give context for and kind of interrogate it. It's just there.
Yeah. And, Kiro, to a non-technical user, I mean, you did a bit of the setup on my machine for Kiro, but there's actually if you're not proficient in working in the command line and that kind of thing, then you're going to come unstuck with Kiro quite quickly. Whereas with this, download it, start working with it. So interesting to see, but, I do question how successful Amazon are going to be with it, even though I think it looks pretty cool. There's other cool things out there. Is it a little bit late to the market? Have other people stolen the march, or is it going to have some killer feature that others don't have? We'll have to wait and see, I guess. Anyway, on that note, let's move on from Amazon Quick to our next article this week, which is an article on the AWS training and certification blog with some new courses and certification updates from AWS training in April 2026. So these come out every month. So I'm curious, John, why you've picked this month's one. Is there something exciting on there that you're looking to get involved with?
Yes, the Microcredentials.
Okay. So this was big news last week. I think Jeff Barr put a blog post out about that, didn't he? And people were, I have to confess, I didn't really understand what it was all about. So I'm interested to hear what's your explanation of that.
Yeah. So I've not looked into it beyond kind of seeing the noise, but it's the sort of thing that I've been trying to sort of find and look at for a little while, particularly on the serverless side of things, right? Because if you look at the existing serverless sort of certifications, there aren't any. Okay, prior to the serverless microcredential, you could do some serverless ready stuff, right? Which is just you've done this kind of mini test, which fine, okay, whatever. There's a bit about serverless in both of the pro certs, a little bit more in the DevOps than the solutions architect, but there's a bit about serverless in both of them, but it's not very heavy in either of them. Okay, there's some in DevOps, there's a section, but it's not massive and it's not like a specialty exam. There's no specialty exam, there's no foundation, there's none of this. And I always thought that was a bit iffy because there was, and maybe serverless compute is kind of wrapped up in other compute, I guess, from a training side of things, but it's the sort of thing that I want to be able to say, yes, okay, I'm DevOps Pro for now. I need to renew, and I really don't want to, but I need to do that. Yes, I'm SA Pro. I've got these kind of 6 certs because I've got all the ones underneath it. That's great. That's wonderful. I am, however, a specialist in thing. And there was never really a way of doing that. You could do it for big data. You could do it for machine learning. And they've made lots of changes over the years to what these certs look like. But there was always a bit of a gap in the sort of slightly more specialist ways of doing certain things, serverless being one of them, and there was a few others. They've handled that a little bit now by kind of rejigging how the exams work, but there was never really anything that did serverless, and now there is. There's 4 micro-credentials. One of them is serverless. What are the others? I should know this before coming on the pod. There is serverless, agentic AI, networking, incident response, and then there's a preview experience. So it's that's not really a credential, right? So there's serverless, AI, networking, and incident response, and those are really interesting topics. Agentic AI, kind of okay, fine. Maybe it's a preview for you doing the foundational AI set. That's cool. Networking, I don't know if networking specialty still exists. I don't remember because I don't pay attention to what the exams are anymore. But again, that'll be like a preview into that kind of area. Serverless is kind of the only thing that really stands on its own, as it were. And then incident response is a really interesting one because that's not really covered anywhere. So these are kind of brand new mini things, and they're not go to a test center, pick 1 from 4 or 2 from 5, sit there for 2 hours and do it. They're in SkillBuilder. Cool. You can kind of do, I think, the foundation one via SkillBuilder anyway, but they're in SkillBuilder, and they are hands-on labs, which is something Amazon AWS kind of did a little bit with the SysOps version 2, because version 1 was just multiple guess, version 2 had labs, and then version 3 went back to multiple guess. So this is them kind of doing that again as well, which is quite interesting.
Yeah, so it is in SkillBuilder, but I did notice in the article it said no subscription required, so you don't need the paid version of SkillBuilder to do these. What are your thoughts on this, Gabrielle? Have you tried any of these yet?
No. For example, I use other kind of learning platform. However, AWS SkillBuilder, I think that is a great platform for the enthusiastic people that want to improve your skill. However, one of the things that caught my attention was the micro-credentials. I think that it looked like pretty interesting because it's more a hands-on learning, and you can specialize in specific things. I noticed that it's more based on real problem or real project that defines AWS, and well, it could be a great idea in this aspect. I'm wondering if, I don't know, if one enterprise or one startup want to see people that have a specialized specific things. That could be one advantages in this case with this micro credentials. But well, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, and from my perspective, anything that people can use to demonstrate skill without having to pay for what is potentially, for some people, an expensive exam is well worth it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely.
So these are effectively like mini timed labs with a certificate at the end of it, I guess.
Yes, yeah, because one of certifications just is a fundamental things, but the experience and that kind of thing make the difference in different, or make the things the different instead of different engineer, in the market.
The other thing as well is if you fail, you, I think, have to wait 3 weeks before you're allowed to retry. So they are taking this quite seriously.
Okay, so it's not like one of these things where you can just go through and just like click all the answers. I got it wrong. I'll start again and do it again. And
no, you've got to go in thinking that you're going to pass it, because if you don't, you're going to have to wait 3 weeks. I think it's 3 weeks. It's around that time.
And is the whole thing a test, or is there kind of some training and preamble that before you?
I don't know. I've not looked into it. It's on my list of things to do because, like I say, I've got to renew my DevOps one. And the way I tend to do those is I just go, because I've got access to QA.com, formerly Cloud Academy. Fine, great. I'll go and use that. I'll do a practice test and I'll kind of see what my scores are and close the couple of gaps that I'll have, right? Because who uses OpsWorks? I know I don't on a daily basis. And that's definitely in the exam. So I'll do that. But once I've done that, assuming I can be bothered to do that, because I know that we need certs as a partner business, but we don't necessarily need me to have these particular ones. And I really can't be bothered. I really can't, right? But it's one of those, you know.
Anything beyond 3 is not useful to a partner. So.
Yeah, and if I let
unless it's for a specific competency, of course.
Yeah. And if I let these ones lapse, I'll still have the other 3 because I've done SA Pro, SA Associate, and the foundation one beneath that, right? So I'll still have those, and it kind of doesn't really matter. But it's bragging rights. It's another 3 that I've got, and I should go and renew them so I can keep having them. But
well, I'm on the micro-credentials page now. There is a 30-minute micro-credential preview experience. So I guess before you take the plunge and lock yourself out for 3 weeks, you can have a look at that and see whether you think you're ready to do the other actual micro-credentials. But there we go. Micro-credentials explained. I saw the noise last week, had no clue what anybody was talking about. So I'm glad we've covered that. Let's move on to our next article for this week. And that's an article on InfoQ about the end of WorkMail. And so I'll read the title. It's AWS ends WorkMail and moves AppRunner to maintenance mode. So a couple of different things here. WorkMail is actually a desktop app, as I understand it. And I kind of mentioned when we were talking about Amazon Quick at the start of the podcast that in the past, AWS has not had great success in the app space. So here's another one going to the AWS app graveyard. But AppRunner, something slightly different. There was some noise recently about this. I think there was a blog post that appeared and then disappeared, and the author had put a LinkedIn post up about the blog post that had disappeared and said, if you happen to read it, ignore it. But here it is. AppRunner is now being moved to maintenance mode about probably a couple of months, I think, after that original blog post went up. So, as I say, no smoke without fire. I guess this was planned, perhaps just got announced a little bit too early by that particular blog writer. But John, thoughts on these services ending?
So I don't really care. And I think that's why they're getting rid of them. This is one of those. Yeah. Amazon had this, or AWS had this kind of tacit policy. I don't think it was ever like a policy, but they just didn't kill things. They kept services around forever. It took them, and okay, I get it. EC2 Classic was around for a very long time, but people were still using it, and it was still making them boatloads of money until everybody kind of migrated off of it. Fine. This isn't that. Okay. AppRunner, I'm a little bit annoyed about, not because I use it, right? Because I do ECS the old-fashioned way, and I kind of roll it all myself. But it's absolutely the sort of thing that you, as a less technical development type, would look at and go, cool, that'll just run my containers for me, in the same way that Beanstalk will run your, this, that, or the other workload for you. And sure, I think you can use Beanstalk to run containerized workloads, but AppRunner was just a slightly smarter way of doing it, because it was using ECS under the covers, not EC2s, and it was doing kind of things a little bit more sensibly. Yeah. But that one kind of leaked accidentally, and it's not actually going away. And no, it is really going away. And that kind of smacks a bit of what happened with Code Commit, where it went away by stealth very quickly and then came back again a year and a half later. So I don't really know what's going on there. WorkMail, don't care. It's an email. I've never even used it. I don't really know what it does. I assume it's some sort of email program, receiving email client. I don't know.
It's a business email service like Exchange, I guess. Or
and that sort of market is
Google Mail.
That sort of market is mostly taken by, what is it now, M365 as they call it, and G Suite, right? And there's a few sort of more niche players. Shout out to Zimbra, because I know that exists. But there's a few sort of more niche players out there, but mostly it's taken by those two big ones. So killing WorkMail, probably not very many people were using it. Don't really care. And there's a handful of other things in there as well. So WorkMail itself, Workspaces, thin client, because again, who's using Workspaces? Like, why would you? RDS Custom for Oracle, and a few other bits and pieces as well. So someone, as Corey Quinn said, someone looked at the usage metrics and just went, well, we ain't running them anymore. Off. But at least they've, how can I word this? At least they've said these are going. It's not just magically quietly killed via a blog post somewhere.
Yeah, there is a page somewhere, isn't there? We talked about this on the blog before about services which are being sunset and moved into maintenance mode. I was quickly scanning this blog post to see if I could find it, but I don't see it in there. But there is a page now that exists, because AWS copped a lot of flack for this in the past for quietly sunsetting these services. But what are your thoughts, Gabriel? Any of these affecting you?
No, at the moment. But for example, AppRunner I used a few months ago. Basically we then move it to Elastic Container Service or ETS, because you can have more control or something like that, or the same Beanstalk. But one of the caught my attentions that it could be for AWS is less popular, and is one of the services that I used at the beginning of my career, is Comprehend and Rekognition for side project, and I think that's resolved a lot of things for that size project. But that's caught my attention that Comprehend and Rekognition will move to the maintained mode. For other ways, I think that these kind of things AWS make for different service, and this is the reason because when I choose a service of AWS, its kind of service could be good evaluations because then make an impact in your workload or in your maintenance more. And well, but well, I think that upfront skills for because maybe it's useful for a lot of customers, but you have other kind of solutions like how I mentioned before, EKS, last container service that can resolve the same things.
So what's replacing Comprehend and Rekognition then?
They're not getting rid of them. They're getting rid of some bits.
Some features. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Topic modeling, event detection, and prompt safety classification.
I think the argument would be Bedrock is replacing that sort of thing.
Yeah, you can do a lot of things with Bedrock in this case.
Yeah, cool. Well, let's move on to the next article, which is kind of sticking with the same subject, really, because it's another end of support announcement, and this is the Amazon Q Developer end of support announcement. So lots of noise made about Amazon Q Developer in recent years. But of course, everybody's now being pushed towards Kiro. So the recent London AWS Summit, the Kiro made the keynote, and we've spoken already on this episode and on previous episodes of the podcast about Kiro because we are fans, we are users of Kiro.
I got the hat.
Yeah. But Q Developer now going end of support. So John, thoughts on that?
Does that make this thing more or less collectible? I'm not sure.
Well, I doubt they'll be producing any more in the future. Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know if that makes my Q challenge coin more or less collectible. I don't know. Not that it matters because I'm just keeping it. This is an interesting one because I never really got into Q dev, right? I know I won the challenge coin, right? But around the time that I was sort of really having this epiphany, Renaissance developer, kind of all the rest of it, Kiro, within a couple of weeks after that, really came out, right? Because this was at ComSum last year. So this was September last year. And I played with Q Developer in the CLI and won the coin and kind of really started to get into it. Also had to play with Kiro as a result of a preview. By going to that event, you could get access ahead of time. So I did that and just sort of went, that's so much better. And okay, I used Q Developer in IntelliJ for a while. And when we had Brian Beach on, Kiro guy, we spoke about Q Developer versus Kiro and plugins. And it was, we want to meet people where they are. And I think the argument now is that people are being pushed out of where they are and into using things like Kiro and Quick because it just stops the fragmentation, I guess, of what they're having to support. I do wonder, okay, and it's not going away tomorrow. I think it's 2027 that they're going away, right? So you've got just under a year to kind of get off platform. But lots of people will have paid subscriptions for these. I was at a talk at the summit where I think it was CDL, who, if you're not familiar, power a lot of the UK car insurance comparison market and various other bits and pieces of the market. They are heavily into Q Developer and they've got paid plans and kind of all the rest of it. So they are going to have to move to Kiro, I guess, which is no bad thing, right? So far as I could always work out, the vibe coding experience I got from Kiro, regardless of where I used it, was better than the vibe coding experience I got from Q. And Kiro has the spec-driven side of things as well. And it will do two different types of specs depending on what you're trying to do, because it will do feature development or bug fix. And the bug fix stuff writes a lot. It's really good. I've used it a couple of times. Writes a lot of tests, validates the bug, then fixes the bug, then reruns the test to make sure that it's actually worked it out, done it properly. Then it writes a bunch more tests. And it's really effective. So I don't necessarily think this is a bad thing. I think this is an interesting one because when Q, like I say, when it came along, it didn't really know what it was. And I think Amazon has got a much clearer idea of what their AI strategy actually is now. And they're reversing the fragmentation that they kind of had to start with, this big explosion of, we've got all these new cool things. It does mean that the Q memes are going to have to stop, I think, but I don't think they're entirely getting rid of Q. So far as I can work out, Q Developer in the console and in various other things in chat apps and Teams are staying. So it's only the coding side of things that's going away, which ironically is the worst thing that they're keeping.
They're staying for now, anyway.
For now. I suspect that Quick might have something to do with this, right? Q, Quick, same kind of logic. I suspect Quick will start to replace that eventually.
Yeah. What are your thoughts, Gabrielle? Have you been were you using Q Developer? Are you using Kiro, or are you doing something else?
Now Amazon Q is one of the services that I don't recommend to use, basically because, I don't know, for example, the Amazon Q developers in the console have a lot of hallucinations. The answer is not true. That kind of things is a little complicated. However, I noticed that AWS has a new strategy with this new service, and understanding what is the new generation of the development, of the experience, of the operations. This is the reason because Amazon Kick is one of the Euro launches, and it's a strategy to put everything like Kiro and try to address to basically spec-driven development. I think that is very nice. I noticed that Amazon Q developers in the console, which keep in the same, but I think that it's not a good service. However, Kiro, I think that they are putting everything with this service. I hope that in the following months can exchange my cursor to Kiro, but I don't know what happened in the following month. I'm gonna say you what's happened with my experience like developers. So in general, I think that AWS make a good strategy in this year, and I hope that this kind of service can make that goals.
It is quite strange they've gone with a completely different brand for Kiro. That it's not any of the kind of Q or Quick or anything else, because it kind of, it's the same ecosystem, isn't it? But they just seem to have completely separated it out.
I think it's because they're trying to delineate it from this is an AWS thing or an Amazon thing. I know it's Amazon Kiro. It's Amazon Kiro, I think. That's where you start playing the is it Amazon or AWS quiz, and I can never get them right. But it's really that's trying to play much more in the agentic coding space than Q kind of ever was. Okay, Q developer plugins available, and there was a CLI, and that was kind of a direct competitor, but it was kind of tainted by a really confusing branding strategy. Kiro, I think, is a much clearer, this is our answer to Claude Code and whatever.
And it's one of the entry points, just one entry point to the service. And it's important that Kiro suppose that understand the entire project. It's not just a AI system or a plugins that it shows Amazon Q. I think that in this case, the strategy is very nice.
Interesting question about Kiro, though. Is it AWS or is it Amazon? I think it's actually AWS, although the branding is virtually invisible on the Kiro website. If you look, it's just Kiro. There's no mention of Amazon or AWS anywhere, really, unless you scroll right to the footer, and then there's a little AWS logo on the left-hand side of the footer. It's
very carefully branded, I think, trying to keep the Amazon name very off of it. One reason or another.
It is there, but only it's quite well hidden. I mean, it's no secret, is it? But
no.
It's it doesn't really. So that would confuse me. I think I need a third option in that quiz if we did it again. Is it Amazon? Is it AWS? We don't know.
Well, we don't pay to Kahoot anymore for the user group, so it's not going to happen.
No, but we can use the other quiz generator.
Oh yeah.
Anyway, on that note, let's move on to our final article for this week, which is an article on that well-respected news outlet, Reuters, as we confirmed in last week's episode. And this is an article, I'll read the headline. Microsoft-OpenAI changed terms of deal so startup can court Amazon and others. So I think we did speak about this on the podcast before, didn't we? But it's basically OpenAI's contract no longer being exclusive with Microsoft. So obviously we've seen investment going into OpenAI from AWS. We've seen OpenAI buying stuff from AWS. This is all about the end of Microsoft's exclusivity with OpenAI, I think. So, John, thoughts on this one?
Yeah, so we spoke about this before when Amazon was waxing a little bit lyrical about they'd got exclusive use of this new stateful runtime environment. And we sat there and we couldn't really puzzle out what that meant. Okay, it's some sort of agentic thing, I guess. But it also meant that so far as we could work out, if you were using the stateful runtime environment, all of your calls back to the model were leaving Amazon's ecosystem, leaving AWS's servers, and calling back out to Azure so far as we could work out. And that felt like a lot of legal hoops rather than technical, like it was necessary for tech reasons, right? It was one of those, well, this thing runs here, but that thing runs over there, and that has to be over here. So we have to hop around these various servers. And it was all just a bit mad. And I think what's happened is legal types have sort of seen the light a little bit and gone, well, if we just loosen that and let them run it wherever they like, we still have a massive stake in this company. And if they do really well and we get a big exit, we're going to make a lot of money. So who cares?
I just got a bit hungry when you said massive steak. Then I realised that wasn't what you were talking about.
It's getting on for dinner time. It is getting on for dinner time.
I do like a massive steak. Gabrielle, what are your thoughts? Not on steaks, but on the OpenAI Microsoft situation.
Well, I think that with this change of the terms was a big news. I think that the winner of this change of the terms is Amazon and GCP. Amazon, because you basically, it's a fact that you can spin up a server, a Lambda, you can spin up Elastic Container Service, make connections directly with the OpenAI via API. However, it's a fact that for other ways, if you make everything more easy to the customers to connect natively with the OpenAI models, is a little more benefits. It's a fact that in the model catalogs, there are OpenAI open source model. However, there is a great difference using the most powerful models of OpenAI. And in this way, how mentioned before, I think that is the great winners in this case is AWS, because the most probably thing is that all the ecosystem have natively connections with the models of OpenAI, and GCP is other great cloud that has benefits in this case.
Yeah. Are you using the models? Have you done anything with OpenAI models yourself?
Particularly OpenAI, at least in Bedrock, I'm started using cloud, but no connections with OpenAI because at least in my organization or in the enterprise, we have a specific catalog of models that we authorize them to use. And maybe OpenAI, we made different connections because we don't have a deal directly with them. Data privacy kind of things can a little more complicated right now to use that kind of model.
Yeah, governance and compliance is often one of the things that gets in the way of adoption of these things. It takes a while to catch up. But of course, when you're working in a bank or any other regulated industry, it's important that the governance and compliance is there. You can't just, it's not the Wild West. You can't just go use whatever you like. Cool. Okay. Well, on that note, we have reached the end of our time for season 5, episode 17 of Logicast. So it just remains for me to thank you, Gabrielle, for giving up the time to join us as our guest again. It's been great to see you again and hear your insights on the AWS news. Thank you, John, just for coming to work. I know you only had one day off, but it's good to have you back.
2. It was one day off sick and then one day off bank holiday.
Well, yes, but everybody had the bank holiday, so thank you, John, as always, for your insights. If you have made it this far, thank you very much for listening. If you've enjoyed it, please give us a like, a rating, and please do tell your friends. We are available to download from wherever you download your podcasts, and we are available as video on the Logicata YouTube channel. So check it out, like and subscribe. We'll be back next week with another episode for you. Until then, thanks for listening. See you again next time.